The new Canadian investor in the Nashville Predators believes the NHL team is exactly where it belongs.
Wilson still has a few speculative oil and gas investments. He is the largest owner and chairman of Foreign Energy, an Alberta Wildcatter, and Lightstream Resources.
Some believe that the Calgary businessman goes too far in dabbling in unverified news stories.
Donation from former Dragons Den star Brett Wilson puts Calgary in an ethical pickle.
There are rumblings that Wilson has amassed a fortune of over $1 billion, and now we know some of that cash is going into the cannabis industry.
Real housewife Mary Zilba is dating billionaire former Dragon Brett Wilson.
Former Dragon's Den star W. Brett Wilson tweets that his cancer is back.
She said 2 o'clock, right?
Yeah, that's what I have in my calendar.
Hey guys, sorry for the delay. I was just on a call with Brett.
It's no problem. Thanks for joining us.
We won't keep you long. We're just sorting out the details for the shoot and wanted to get a sense of accessibility. How does he feel about us following him around for a few days?
Well, his schedule is a bit crazy with some health stuff and family, but I will see what we can do.
Does he go back to North Battleford often? Because it would be great to see where he grew up.
Yes, we can get him to North Battleford. He loves it there. We will fly in, but please don't show his plane.
Test drive, test drive, test drive. Hello, hello, hello. There's 1,456 unread voice messages.
Voice messages?
Yeah, that's what's been left that I haven't even looked at because I don't look at them. I don't care.
So who does look at them? How do you
Nobody.
get to them? Never.
No. If you don't call me twice, you're not going to get a hold of me. If you don't copy Caitlin on an email, you might not hear from me. My dad sold cars. My mom was a social worker. And I make fun of the fact that that's why I'm a capitalist with a heart. So this is the family home. I still remember my dad organizing, bringing this stone in. It was huge. It was a big deal at the time. I could tell you at one time, every single family on this whole block, right from one end to the other, that was just the nature of how we were raised. We lived in a community, and I still remember describing North Battleford as half Polish, half French, half English, half Scottish, half Irish, half Ukrainian, half Russian. It was a mixture, and we just never judged in any way or time that I can remember. It was just, everyone was equal, and you went to school together and you did things together.
She's right there watching us.
Hello.
Hi. You're home again, are you?
Just for an hour or a few minutes. I'm Brett to say hello, and you are?
You don't have to tell me who you are.
Yeah, but who are you?
Oh, Rita.
Pleasure. I mowed that front lawn a few times too. Well, I was telling the story, I learned how to play hockey right here. And you could also bumper ski, because if you slowed the cars down, you could then hook onto the bumper and keep going another block. That was the real fun. Anyway, thanks for saying hello. Thank you. The reason I am who I am for 16 years of my life is the Battlefords. I still remember playing soccer out there, getting hit in the head with a ball on the side of my head, knocked me right down. Hello, 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 hello. Yo, dude. Let him go. Hi. I left the Battlefords as quickly as I could when I was finished high school. I was young and heading off to the big city, and it was, don't look back. Don't look back until 30 years later when I realized how important this city was, and I just never fully appreciated how much the Battlefords as a collective meant to me in that regard. Hello.
Well, in the last year or so, some of the dollars that you've donated towards our school to help with classrooms have actually been routed into this project.
I watch my parents work on charities all the time. And the charity and community work that we're doing on an ongoing basis, it's all focused on the Battlefords. Brady's been on my to-give list for a long time. We might fund a few more. High school's on the other side of town. Around the corner here, there's a house that was my first investment. 4 of us each put up $500 and we borrowed $18,000. I learned how to do remote property maintenance. I learned to take out 2 of my partners who didn't want to have anything to do with actually making this thing work. And we lost money ultimately. It was a tough one. So I did grades 10, 11, and 12 here. Getting away was a good thing. You know, university was challenging because I still remember my first day in the engineering school. Mostly guys, and they're nerds. Their shoelaces are broken, their glasses are taped, their shirts are dirty. But I can also say it was the first time I fit in, truly fit in my life, because these were my people.
Totally.
Very much. This end of the building was entirely education, and this side was all trades, which ultimately influenced my outcome as an entrepreneur, because of so much of this stuff, I'm not afraid of the welder, I'm not afraid of the carpenter, I'm not afraid of the electrician, because they were an integral part of how I was raised. And a lot of kids who are academic had no interest in the trades. I lived in this side as much as I could, because there was fixing and repairing and breaking and all sorts of fun stuff.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
Jennifer, Brett. And you found an old yearbook, I take it? Wow. Look at the mess of hair on that little guy. And now he's just coming back. Used to be to the sides. Every single one of these people I remember. It's kind of bizarre. You know the name John Gormley? Yeah, I went to high school with John. And I still remember being backstage as he was doing one of his plays. Hello, hello. Dancing. Well, there's still space for me. All right. Hello.
What a day, hey? Like a legend rolls by here from the community, and
No, a chubby old guy who used to live here. That's all.
no one's gonna miss you with this rocking this. We could see you a mile away. This is great. I'm a professor at the University of Alberta.
Oh.
Yeah, and from Montreal Lake Cree Nation.
The only thing I add is that no matter what you study post school, whether it's a trade or to be a dental assistant or to be a dentist or to go to engineering, it doesn't matter. I always celebrate the spirit of entrepreneurship, because that's what you can do no matter what your training is. Here we are, 1, 2.
One of my favorite terms that I use, and for the last decade now, is I love to mingle. And I use the word mingle as a stepping point for engagement. You just never know where it's going to get interesting.
Keep on leveling up.
Did you shoot a moose?
Yep.
Wow. I'll take that. How big moose?
Pretty big one. It was a calf, but he's big fat.
A big calf?
Yeah.
I know where Hafford is.
Yes.
I used to haul bales just south of Hafford.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Towards Mayfair, all that.
Going anywhere with Brett, you have to tack on 3 times the amount it would take a normal person to speak to everyone and see everything, because he actually is excited. He loves to talk to everyone, and he will answer every question that anyone has. You have him on like a normal day. He can amp it up even.
Okay, so we'll make sure to spend a solid day with him in North Battleford, let him take us around, but we'll have to break for lunch somewhere in the middle.
KFC.
Sorry?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Really?
3-piece, all white, gravy and fries, whatever, you know. All white, 3-piece, gravy, fries. It was a big treat when on a Sunday night the family could afford to do Kentucky Fried Chicken. KFC, but more importantly, this KFC, it was owned by a close family friend, the Sparrows in the Battlefords, and an integral part of living was knowing that a local businessman who was a farmer and owned a garbage truck business and was a senator could do everything. Hello, team. Thanks for lunch.
Yeah, sure.
That was awesome. Yeah. No,
Chocolate then, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
maybe.
Oh, you
Yeah. Long time ago.
Yeah.
So are you hugging me or not?
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Thanks again. Appreciate the all-white chickens.
Everyone here knows you and wants to say hi. What is that like?
It's amusing. It's entertaining. It's appreciated. I have been doing a lot of work in terms of the Battlefords in the last 15 years. My son's played an active role in that. And I have a team of 3 or 4 that are here regularly. So we just saw the Battlefords as an opportunity to share. Besides being born here, was the fact that my mom was dying of cancer, and we were in the room with her. This is 1997. And unfortunately, her mother also came to the hospital. And so mother and daughter both died the same hour, same hospital, same day. So it's pretty hard on the family, very hard on the family. You know, being able to even talk about it now is thanks to therapy, because it wasn't easy. The care we got in the Battlefords Union Hospital was instrumental in my first major donation to anyone, which was, you know, funds to help with new X-ray equipment for the intake. It didn't really matter. It was just I wanted to help out. And then over time, we started to do more and more and more.
But you had your sights set beyond North Battleford.
So I did my engineering degree. Very little about entrepreneurship, very little about business. For me, getting out of town was a priority. I tell you, when I left North Battleford for Saskatoon, left Saskatoon for Calgary, I wasn't coming back.
Our plan is to go to Calgary and film Brett in his element, but what we would really love to do is a sit-down interview with him in his house. How would he feel about that?
He can be pretty private about his personal space, so not sure how he'd feel about having the crew at his home.
Moving to Calgary came as a result of going to Edmonton first. I spent a couple of years there. I was with Imperial Oil, and I got married. My wife was an engineer. We just fit in and did our things together. Hi, how are you? Sorry, that's just the dog. That's Buffy. And Buffy is short for Buffalo, not Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You fit, well, fuck. Put your tongue somewhere else. All right, Buffy, what the fuck are we waiting for? Oh, sorry, it's you guys. It's not Buffy. Calgary was an enigma for me when I decided to do my business degree, because I went up to the university and I met with the 2 women who were running admissions for the MBA program, the business program. And they asked me if I'd written my GMAT, which is an entrance exam. I said, no. They said, have you got 5 years work experience? I said, no. And they basically said, then we're not even going to give you the application form. You're out. You're not in. You're out. Well, I went downstairs and I pulled out a quarter. And people in this room may remember that you used to use a quarter to make a phone call. I got on the phone. I actually called the office of the dean of the business school. Who was he? He was a guy named Mike Maher. Mike Maher grew up in a place called the Battlefords. Mike Maher was the dean of the School of Business at the University of Saskatchewan. And his assistant said, we'll give you 5 minutes. That's it. It was the original Dragon's Den pitch. And he said, all right, I'm going to let you in on a probationary basis. So I took a number of classes that really, there might have been a seed planted in earlier days relative to entrepreneurship, but I didn't really think about it as something I wanted to do. I worked for a big oil company. I was going to work for a big whatever company. I didn't think about starting my own. That just wasn't my space. But as I started to do my MBA, I started doing courses and classes that really, really, if you will, watered the seed that was planted at some point. Goodbye.
Good morning, Brett.
Huh. What's for lunch?
Mashed potatoes, meatloaf, and green beans.
Green beans?
I know.
Oh, how can you do that to me?
We have to have them once a year.
But I had green beans yesterday.
No.
Okay, I don't eat green beans, whatever. We'll be fine. My mom loved green beans, so. But I already had meatloaf for breakfast, so you do what you want.
I was sort of forced into an entrepreneurial experience because I didn't want to go back and work for the big investment bank, and I didn't know where I wanted to be otherwise, so I started my own. And I spent 2 years brokering oil and gas properties, just like a realtor would broker a building.
John G., any word from BDP? Nothing yet. That's odd. Okay.
Then I partnered with some friends and we started First Energy.
Hello, hello.
When I started my role as an entrepreneur, quite frankly, it was to figure out how to pay the bills. You know, I didn't have a big dream. I had a very functional dream. How are we going to cover the costs? I had a mortgage, a wife who was looking after 3 kids, and I had 3 kids.
Well, let's bring it back when you can.
My first year running Wilson Mackey, as we called it, I made just above minimum wage. In fact, I remember sitting with my accountant and she looked at us and said, "Why are you guys doing this?" We'd made so little. In other words, she made more working for us than we did owning the business. Well, why? Because the next year looked pretty damn good. Have you seen our boardroom?
No, not yet.
You want to go for a quick walk?
Let's go.
What's happening?
There we go. Every piece of art in here is from Saskatchewan. One of the most interesting pieces of art that I own is actually this Illingworth Kerr, probably the most valuable piece I own by far. The sculpture, Joe Fafard. This is Anglin Lake up near Prince Albert. And you know what's interesting about Anglin Lake? It was the first lake I ever canoed across as a Boy Scout. These two, the top 2 pieces of Ernie Lindner's, are a collection of 8. The other 6 are all in national museums. I managed to outbid the museums on these 2. So here we are. I wanted them. And now, an entertaining, interesting room. So everything in here is Henderson, Kenderdine, Lindner, and Loveroff. Those are the 4 that probably represent everything that's in here. Quite frankly, we've ended the collection because I'm out of wall. I have no more walls. They're full. Everything that can hold a piece of art. And
Right there.
my core businesses are farmland in Saskatchewan and then real estate in a place called Kelowna. Power plants that we're building. We built one, we're building another in Alberta. I live and breathe our next electrical plant.
Some sports?
Oh yeah, Nashville Predators. I own a piece of them. Fun story if you're interested in the Predators. And I'm sitting, and randomly beside me is a very handsome young man. And his name is DeWitt. And we're talking a bit about hockey because I'm Canadian. It comes up fairly quickly. I shared that I'd actually tried to reach out to Jim Balsillie, Canadian who was trying to move the club. The guy looks at me and says, "So, are you still interested in buying into the Preds?" And I kind of, yeah, I mean, why? And he said, "Well, my family's part of the new ownership group, and someone dropped out of the group this morning. Would you like his spot?" I went, "Well, yeah, I would." 4 hours, Nashville. I bought into the Preds.
I haven't even asked Brett for permission, but if he gives me permission, I will be back.
Nashville's been a pretty interesting place. Everything I do there, I do with Brett Kissel. And I like his first name because it matches nicely. So we call them Brett Brett. There's Brett Brett Build when we go to Mexico. There's Brett Brett Boat when we do the only and the largest boat concert in Canada out of my cabin.
Lunch is ready!
Whoa! All right, let's go. Buffy, lunchtime. Let's go. Where's the ketchup? Dawn, where's the ketchup? I love your gravy, but we need ketchup. Ketchup's a core asset. Beans are optional, especially when you got carrots on the plate.
I get to work with my mom. She's our chef at the office.
It is the best thing to get a job when you're 60, to be able to work with your daughter and such nice people in such a great place.
Being there, my mom cooked me an entire box of chocolate chip cookies and shipped them to me.
Anybody you ask who works here is so grateful to be on Brett's team. And once you're in, you will not leave.
My bags are packed.
Guarantee that you're stuck with us.
The flip side is I'm so grateful that they're on the team. So it's a mutual win-win.
That's my favorite story.
Single, like the whole box. It was a big box.
All right, Dragon's Den. People will want to hear about that experience for sure.
Did you end up getting the clearance for the Dragon's Den footage?
It was going to cost a ton of money to get even a 5-second clip, so we're just gonna have to get creative.
So put your money in your mouth and your hands right up on the wheel.
I went to Toronto and they had 4 of us and I got interviewed. I finished the day and they said, look, we'd love to have you as the next dragon. You're just not mean enough. And I said, if mean means being a prick on the show, I'm not interested. But if you ever want a dragon who's there to do deals, let me know. And they said, give us the reasons that we should engage with you and not someone else. So I wrote them the top 10 reasons to work with Brett. The one that I wrote that got the most attention was I said, it takes a combination of balls, brains, and a wallet to do deals. And then I said, and you appear to be somewhat short of all 3 on the show at this time. What I meant was cash, courage, and commitment. And you can play with either. But the real point is in order to do deals, and when I said balls, you have to have the courage to step up and participate in an early stage deal. You have to have the money. Why bother if you're not there? And commitment. Are you going to stay the course? Are you going to work with that person and help them build their brand? I did 60 deals on air, closed 30 of them. Took a while to get things sorted. But of the handful that are still alive, the only 2 that are of substance, Saskatchewan, 1 in Regina, 1 in Saskatoon. Can I help you? Oh, just a minute. This is Saskatoon. Welcome.
We're here? Well, you guys can just go play on the beach.
Okay.
Yeah. You just go play on the beach for a few
You know
minutes.
what? New plan. Do you know there's a boat out there?
Yeah.
A big pontoon boat. It's really safe and really fun. And 2 of the guys that work with me are willing to take you guys on a big boat ride right now. You want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would love to.
Here, Harry, see if this fits you. Hey guys, have a good time. We're gonna go talk about some business, okay? Okay, have fun, guys.
So I walk out and I see this shipping container, and then, all right, I know where this is going. But the fun fact that you may recall is Kevin and Robert, within minutes of you guys disclosing that you're from Saskatchewan, they're both looking at me going, Brett, it's yours. There's about 40 separate buildings here.
Yeah, it's about 40,000 square feet or so.
Yeah. The row of small ones, they all share common washroom.
The other thing we want to show you, because we know you couldn't make the grand opening, so we wanted to do a little virtual tour of the office.
Just a minute, this is our office?
This is our office.
Oh.
One of the cool things too that we did, we've thread some of the most influential people in our lives. So
you're getting to me.
So, and it's got a bit of a Brett vibe in here. This is going to be our canvas for Saskatchewan art. So this is the Wilson room. So you'll get to come hang out in there when you come visit.
Not surprised at where we're at, and I'm, to be blunt, really pleased, really proud that I'm part of this.
Yeah.
And you guys should be proud of what you've accomplished here.
And I just think it's so cool that we're here.
Yep.
Working.
Yeah, there's family on the lake.
Yeah.
Coming in.
Come on in. I don't hesitate to talk about how important it is to balance the success you're enjoying in the office with the most important success in life, happiness. In your case, our case, family happiness.
And we've taken that real seriously, and we've built this business around our families and prioritizing that.
3, 2, 1, go!
The bottom line is you can't buy back time. And I put a lot of time into building my career, into helping round out the experiences at First Energy. And that got me to a point where I was there virtually every night. And when I say virtually, I mean in a month, all but 1 or 2. So I was stuck at home one night. That starts the story. I was stuck at home. And I was waiting for a phone call because I was going to buy a particular piece of art. That piece of art was critical to my life. The phone rang a number of times, and one of my kids answered it each time and dealt with it. No big deal. Finally, as I'm thinking, this piece must be up right away, I phoned the auction house and said, Peggy, where are you at with this particular piece? And yes, it was an Ernie Lindner, my Saskatchewan art collection. And she said, Brett, we sold it about 5 minutes ago. And she said, I called you 3 times. And she said, your daughter said you weren't home. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go up and have a little chat with my daughter. Opened the door, she was lying in bed. Homework, crayons, color, whatever. And I said to her, the fuck are you doing telling someone I'm not home? And she looked at me and said, because you never are. And that was the moment. That was the moment where I fully appreciated the mistake I was making. Until she hit me right between the eyes. It wasn't much longer, like a month later, I ended up in this, call it addiction treatment or health treatment program, whatever you want to call it. And it was eye-opening. And again, as simple as I put it, I reprioritized my life. Wealth, travel, deals, art, cars, house. And my priorities then evolved very simply. Health. And I talk about my health, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, sexual, everything about your health is your priority, because without your health, you've got nothing to offer the next priority. What's the next priority? Family. Family, my relationships are imperfect, but I work hard on them. After family, friends. After friends, the way I phrased the next part of my life, priorities was, first of all, education. Like, what do you learn? Whether you're a trade, or you're working for someone who's a close friend, or you're going to university, it doesn't matter. How did you get educated? Number 5 is, how do you pay the bills? What is it that your career unfolds? What do you do? And number 6 is community. So there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, health. 2, family. 3, friends. 4, education. 5, career. Again, whatever you describe your work environment to be. And number 6 is community. And I actually fundamentally believe that everyone in this world is better off. Health, family, friends, education, career, and community. That group of 6 is the best way of packaging, if you will, the priorities for everyone. I don't care who you are. Those priorities rank properly. And that's a huge part of why I challenge people as they think about their overtime patterns. Be careful. Challenge the reality of how much time does your job really need versus how much time does your family deserve. And I lost 10 years that I can't get back. So at this point in my life, 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. They all have husbands. I'm stupidly in love with all of the husbands. I tend to spend an awful lot of time with all of them. This is me wrestling with a 2-year-old. Trying to play cards, trying to wrestle, trying to chew on a stick at the same time. This is probably one of the highlights of my life. I'll start over. Hey Kyle, can I call you back in about an hour? Or is anything urgent? I saw that. All right, and good luck. I'm reachable later if you need me. All right, ciao. All right, bye. Sorry, there's very few phone calls that interrupt, and that was my power company. It's pretty important. We may be permitting. In terms of what we know to be the way the world's unfolding. So.
Hold on, can I move that piece of hair?
No, just leave me alone. I mean, we're going, don't we have work? It's fine. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Wait.
As long as you're videoing all this madness.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's get serious. Let's talk about your health journey.
Well, I was diagnosed with cancer about a year after I ended up divorcing. The chance to go and get treated became a priority. My urinary tract, my bladder complex, and my foot, my leg have both separately but simultaneously suffered from, call it, the side effects of radiation. And so I can tell you that half of 2022 couldn't have gone fast enough. All of 2023 had to go. It just was a really tough year. I didn't travel, I didn't engage. I've never been, again, I'll be really blunt on air, I've never been suicidal, but there was many mornings last year where I didn't want to get up. And that left me wondering, like, what the hell's the purpose of being alive? Well, all right, fine. I got up and away I went, and then the day began. But it was a slow start, and it was a difficult start. And quite frankly, today, I don't like how my foot feels. I don't like my kidneys, but I like my brain. So we're fine. We're going to keep working through this.
That's enough.
One more. 3. Yay!
Thanks, bye.
You know, my business career went sideways for a month, but that's all it was. I ended up staying as a partner with First Energy for 13 years. But no, I pulled the pin when I turned 50 and started to look after my own businesses, the investments I'd made. There was all sorts of things.
How many different investments do you think you had?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
Several hundred.
Well, I'm pretty proud of being a participant in helping bring this restaurant together. It's one of the most unique restaurants in all of Canada. We call it the rooftop because it's on a roof and it's the top.
But the goal over the next several years, and has been for the last 5 years, is to shrink the number. There was more than 50 in cannabis alone. We're down to 5 or 6.
Kind of a fun fact, the bars, and if you swing back and look at the kitchen and the dishes and the stage, everything was brought to us by 320. We just dropped them in place and then added some liquor.
So would you say that you're happy? I know you might have some past life regrets, but are you happy today?
Yeah, I'd say I'm happy.
And how do you feel about this experience, having this crew follow you around, documenting your life and your past?
I've done a couple of smaller versions of this, but no, this is by far the most engaging that it's ever been. Tougher questions, more questions. More cameras, more dog, more everything. There's more than a few friends wondering what the end result will be.
Yo, it's Brett Wilson, you know the name. Canadian mogul in the business game. Started from the bottom, now he's on top. Entrepreneurial spirit never gonna stop. From Dragon's Den, making deals fly. Visionary mind, reaching for the sky. The land of his heart, giving back strong. With Brett in the game, you can't go wrong. Brett Wilson, making waves in the business world. He paves the way with a heart of gold and a mind so sharp. He's a true icon, leaving his mark. Hustling hard every single day. Brett's on a mission, he's here to stay. Inspiring millions, showing blazing away. Hustling hard every single day. Brett's on a mission, he's here to stay. Inspiring millions, showing the way. With passion and purpose, he's blazing away. Brett Wilson, making waves in the business world. He paves the way with a heart of gold and a mind so sharp. He's a true icon, leaving his mark. So raise a glass to a man so grand. Brett Wilson, the leader we understand. Canadian pride, a business king. With Brett at the helm, we all win.
And this guy really doesn't need an introduction. The man with the balls, the brains, and the wallet. W. Brett Wilson.
Excellent. Well, good to see you again, my friend.
Pardon me, there's a little bit of cord, and I'll fix that. John and I went to high school together.
Yep. And St. Paul's Anglican Church. Cubs. Then Scouts.
Yep. Is this still working? Whatever.
Yeah, and then the football. Yeah, it's been a good long run.
I still remember you putting on one of your radio shows, you were talking about, and it was broadcast because you put it on social media, it was a list of all the players on the football teams.
Oh, yes.
And on that list, there was our weight. I was 142, or I was 144, you were 142.
42.
Yeah, you were a little guy there.
Yeah, I've got a leg now that's 142. I warned you I was going to tell the story. This was years ago in Calgary. I meet a guy, and of course, like everybody, there's Saskatchewan roots. And we're chatting, a perfect stranger, and we get talking about cottages in the lake, and Jackfish Lake. And he says, are you anywhere near Meota? And I said, well, we're actually at Metnota, just around the corner. And he said, well, I had a business partner in the oil industry who had a company called Meota Holdings. And we had certain assets, and he always used to talk about Meota because that's where he lost his virginity. I paused and I listened and I said, so how long was Brett Wilson your partner?
We edited some of that stuff out, but okay.
You referred in the video to your health, and a lot of us who know you and love you have been concerned lately. There are all sorts of thoughts about health. How are you today?
My family was pretty scared in June. At the end of May, I was down in Mexico doing some stem cell treatment, and unfortunately I had a stroke while I was in Mexico. And then to add to the combination of challenges, a friend of mine that was with me was careful enough, thoughtful enough to reach out to Caitlin. You saw her in the video. This was at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. Caitlin caught the 6 a.m. flight to Cabo San Lucas. So when I ultimately got out of my hotel, she had arranged a doctor to come and see me emergency style. Then I went to hospital with an ambulance. And I still remember being sedated because of the mess I was in. And I woke up that day to Caitlin in my hotel, or in my hospital room. And she said, by the way, Russell is on his way. Russell being my son, Russell living in Australia, was on his way to Cabo San Lucas to help. And they spent the next 5 days, and we don't need to bury ourselves in this story, but they spent 5 days fighting with Alberta Health System to get me home, because there was concern that I was bringing some of the worst infections in the world back to Calgary. They didn't want me on a weekend because emergency was too busy, blah, blah, blah. We got medevaced. We did some insurance work, got sorted out, and got home. So I had a stroke. Now the stroke goes on top of the conversations we've had. 5 rounds of cancer, 5 rounds of radiation. Good news is we killed the cancer. The bad news is we left the radiation in the body. And that's been pretty hard on me. That's why I walk with a brace. This foot is a mess. I've done some surgery in the US, innovative, creative. Who knows, it might work in another year. It takes 2 or 3 years to regrow the nerves. But the stroke was damaging to me mentally and emotionally because it was a setback. I still remember I lost my left leg, left arm, left hand, left foot. Gone. You're lying on a bed in Mexico. The bed's about this wide. There's a bunch of people. They were the most wonderful people, let's be crystal clear. And my son-in-law happens to be a medical professional, And he spent probably 5 hours on the phone with the doctors I was working with in Mexico, and then another 15 with the Gong Show in Calgary. But ultimately great care, but Mexico was amazing for health. They were awesome. But I still remember waking up that first morning, Caitlin's there. I can't move my arm. The hands are gone. That is demoralizing. It's scary. Family got quite concerned. I mean, I'm not dying from this mess, but when you're going through this stuff, family gets quite concerned. So let's just say we advanced, and I'm living with this mess. The stem cells might be helping, the medical system might be helping, my family and staff might be helping. I'm pretty proud. I'm nowhere near done. Let's be clear. Thank you.
Before we talk about entrepreneurship and philanthropy, and those are two things you are so known for, the Brett who, whether as an investor, whether as a public advocate, whether as a friend, what do you learn about leadership? Whether it's leading in a corporate environment, leading an investment group, leading a family.
Leadership's certainly one of the most confusing opportunities, because some people come to the top and it's their way or the highway. Other people, and I'm proud to put myself in this group, you know, when First Energy got started, ultimately it was one of the most successful investment banks ever in Canadian history. There was 4 of us. It wasn't me. I happened to be the president, doesn't matter. There was 4 of us, and we added 4 more. So there was 8 of us. The partnership meetings were everything. We treated each other as absolute equals. And Murray Edwards was one of the partners. Let me tell you, he had trouble being an equal, because he's twice as bright as anyone. He remembers everything that's ever been said, ever been done. He'll deny it, but I know he remembers. I've dealt with him. But anyway, so it was kind of fun to go through working as a collaborative team. And that's been my approach, whether it's staff, even family, certainly the businesses I'm involved with. I'm pretty proud of the fact that Brian and Evan, they're upstairs somewhere there, in terms of the 320, which we met on Dragon's Den, did our deal, all that stuff. But we've always been collaborative. It's never been them hoping I'll come on side with an idea they've got. We work, we scramble, we test, we challenge, all of it. Same with Regina. There's a girl who built an incredible jewelry business, Rachel Milkey, and she's been a treat. In fact, one of the toughest conversations I had with her was when she wanted to expand the business. And I said, it's going to cost you your family. And we sat down and had a long chat about what that would mean in terms of growing the business, absorbing her into it. And I can tell you, you know, almost annually, we meet several times a year, but she always says, thank you for putting my family ahead of the bottom line at the business. And that's one of the trade-offs. Coming back to your first leadership question, a lot of people really do focus on the bottom line. I like the bottom line. Let's be crystal clear, the billionaires never happened. I mean, whatever. But, so that's a lie. And I've pissed a lot away, so there's no hope of ever getting there. But anyway, where I was going with that is that, you know, the wealth, once you have enough, and there was, again, so I'm going rambling all over. Someone once told me about an idea that if you had wealth and you put it in 3 buckets, you could take care of everything. The first bucket is the cost of living till you die. Second bucket is protecting that cost of living until you die. So once you got the first bucket and the second bucket full, what the hell's the purpose of the third bucket? It's to give away. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that I've got a bucket that I can give away.
If you went least to most, balls, brains,
Okay, well, let's be clear. When I wrote that, there was 10 things on the list. And CBC had came to me and said, Brett, we've narrowed it down to you and one other person. We've interviewed 100 people to be potential dragons. They wanted me to be a prick on TV, you know, all that stuff. I already saw that on TV. But I said to them, one of the reasons I should be celebrated as a possible dragon is I have Saskatchewan roots. Then there was oil and gas routes, and then there was investment banking routes. And number 4 was, it takes a combination of balls, brains, and a wallet to do deals, and you appear to be somewhat short of all 3 on the show. I never thought about the fact that they would share that list with all the dragons. Arlene still hasn't forgiven me. But I got on the show, and the purpose of getting on that show was to do deals. And again, I don't want to denigrate any of the other dragons, but they often go there to build brand, to associate with brand. Arlene's done a fabulous job of keeping her marketing business alive and well. Jim Treliving, one of my best friends, said that the value of him being on the show to Boston Pizza and the oil change company, I forget, one of them. Go ahead, shout it out. Yeah, that one, Mr. Lube. He said it was worth $3 to $4 million a year in terms of brand development. And I'm going there and I don't want any phone calls, I don't want anything. I'm just there to do deals. So I did 60 deals on air. We closed 30 of them, actually wrote checks, signed paper.
Is that a percentage that would be usual?
Well, the other dragons all did 2 deals in the time I did 30.
Really?
So just for clarity, that was the gap. Yeah. And that's ultimately where it became a problem. CBC did, let's market, defund CBC. Oh, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I wasn't going to be political, but here we are. Anyway, I've got a beautiful building, and if it turns into high-rise. Anyway, sorry, where was I going? CBC? Yeah. To be blunt, I've forgotten where I was going with that one.
Doing deals, two to your 30, but I was just curious what the percentage, 30 of 60 closings.
Well, the other dragons didn't do deals. One of the problems I had, and this is where I was going with the comment, CBC did a show in my season 3, which was 5th season of the show. Right. And I was privileged to be there as the show was taking off. Not because of me, but certainly with me. And that was season 3, 4. The ultimate viewership was 4, 5, and 6. 2.25 million peak viewers. Evening TV is 750,000. Saturday night hockey is 1 million. So there these dragons were, and they're running at a pretty low budget in terms of how we're bringing these shows together. Anyway, so they wanted to do a show about all the dragons' deals. And so they celebrated 13 deals. 11 of them were mine. Not once did they name the dragons. They constantly, if you ever dig up this show, it was all about, and then the dragon said, we're in for $200,000 and buying 20% or whatever it was. Not once did they mention me, because they had this issue with the fact that the other dragons didn't do their deals. And they didn't care. And that's okay. Again, it's a television show. It's not a reality show. It's a television show. I happen to drop a little bit of reality into it. I spent $4.5 million on deals. Within 2 or 3 years, one of the deals cost me $2 million. We weren't paying enough attention to the bottom line. They were growing. The more they sold, the more they lost. So that business went to zero. But ultimately, 3 deals: perfume, jewelry, and then, of course, the work that 320's doing. Started out as little shipping containers. They've gotten a little carried away in turning it into modular business. So I was at their offices today. Pretty proud of that. By the way, I missed their open
office,
house.
by the way.
The office is amazing. I missed it because I was lying in a hotel or a hospital bed trying to move my fingers. I couldn't even, trying to type, and your hand won't hold a phone. So I was limited even on phone use. I'm not using it now, don't worry about that. But it was challenging. Anyway, sorry, ramble conversation.
No, when you talk about the deals, though, this was a question I had, because you look at Brian and Evan here, you look at Rachel and Regina. Investors look at the metrics. I mean, you've got a set of metrics you look for a deal. What are the human metrics in a project worth investing in? And is that human factor in addition to or complementing the business case?
Candidly, it superseded the business case. We were so early that I still remember I spent more than an hour interviewing Brian and Evan. I spent more than an hour talking to Rachel. It gets edited down to 6 minutes. So the other dragons were kind of going, what the f is going on? I mean, how long do we have to sit here and listen to him ask these questions? But I was developing trust. I was developing an understanding of can they answer questions. I mean, I was rambling all over the place in terms of, would you do this? Why wouldn't you do that? Where'd you grow up? How did you? I mean, I just wanted to know who they were, what they did, and how they went about doing what they did. Because quite frankly, the business deal just didn't matter. We started, again, let's go back to 320. Shipping containers, Brian, Evan, what did you do with your shipping containers? We rent a few of them out right now, but again, the business has evolved dramatically. Sales are up from almost zero when we started to tens and tens of millions of dollars. Why? Because I invested in Brian.
But what was it about Brian and Evan as people?
That's a great question.
Differentiate, because this is a good way to move into entrepreneurship. What was it about those two young people with that vision that attracted you?
You know, the highest standard for me of all relationships isn't love. And you know what? I may not love my ex-wife, but I'll tell you what the highest standard of relationships is. It's trust. And I trust my ex-wife completely. I have absolutely no concern. If she needs a hand, I'm there because I trust her. And that goes back to Brian and Evan and how we developed our relationship. It came to trust. And that's the essence. I thought they had talent. I thought they had knowledge. I thought they were random and bouncing all over in terms of ideas. And that excited me. Because if I'm going to invest in people, first of all, I have to trust them. And I also have to believe in them. But that ties to trust. That's the ultimate.
I didn't know, very much like your house in Calgary, there's a huge big red brick house on 1st Avenue and 27th Street in Battleford. And it was a rooming house when I was a kid. It had been floated down the North Saskatchewan River by Senator Benjamin Prince, who was a giant in the Northwest Territories in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Sir Frederick Haltane, Walter Scott, the new premier, Senator Prince goes to the Senate. Who was Benjamin Prince?
He was my great-grandfather. And what's a fascinating story about this great-grandfather is he had 3 sons who basically took over the wealth that he'd generated. He had 3 daughters. 2 of them got married. One married to the Piggott family, if anyone knows Piggott Construction in Hamilton. And they were at one time one of the biggest builders in Canada. And they met as Piggott was coming across Canada building things like the library.
And the courthouses and the land titles.
Courthouses and land titles, exactly. So that's what they were doing coming across. So one daughter got scooped up there. Another daughter married into a family called the Duels. And the Duel Construction ended up being one of the biggest contractors down in a place called San Francisco. So went on to bigger and better things. The last daughter stayed at home until she was in her mid-30s, looking after her mother, who was dying. That daughter was my grandmother. She married a relatively crotchety old dentist who was my grandfather. I never really knew him. There were stories of him that were legend, but so he found her and said, I'll marry you, and they went ahead and had 6 kids. So another family. That was sort of the, I think there was the leftover daughter, and this guy shows up, he's no wife, and he's a dentist, and he needs someone to feed him, and so I think that was kind of how that's how the relationship got built. But again, she was the daughter of Senator Benjamin Prince. So I've always been fascinated by, I mean, growing up, we lived on the wrong side of the tracks, if you want to talk about wealth. But we always knew about this Piggott family. We always knew about this Duel family. We also knew that there was cousins, distant cousins, that owned farmland all over the place. But we had nothing. Mom and Dad's first house, I remember it was $13,000, and they paid an extra $1,000 to extend the front of blah, 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 as a kid. So again, for 1641 91st Street, North Battleford, you saw that picture. It was fascinating.
What was
just
it about
living
Senator?
in a different world.
But Senator Prince, though, was an extraordinary entrepreneur. Were there lessons?
No, sorry, there weren't then, because we didn't know about him. There was very little information. But I can tell you when I ultimately got into the world of entrepreneurship, that conversation about who he was and what he did came up more than once. So absolutely fascinating. Again, obviously not an integral part of my life, because he passed away 20, 30 years before I was born, his daughter. But my mom and dad suffered a little bit in the world of entrepreneurship. Because when they first got married, in fact, the other story is that my dad was working in the oil patch, and he came back after being gone for 8 months in the oil patch, and apparently I wouldn't let him touch me. He quit his job that day. I still remember that.
The 6 priorities that you referred to in the video, you, at some length in your book, Redefining Success, Still Making Mistakes, that was back in 2012, you told those stories about your daughter hanging up the phone. How did you go about advising other people in your life how to integrate those priorities? I mean, it was a turning point for you, but you've talked to a lot of people about that. How do we set those priorities in our lives?
That, of course, is one of the challenges, because I got celebrated for being an entrepreneur. I got celebrated. I mean, I was making more every week than I'd ever made in a year. And so wealth was rolling in. The cars were bigger, the yard was bigger, the house was bigger. We could go on longer trips. On the other hand, I spent most of the trips on the phone so I wasn't engaged in anything except my work. And friends knew that. They knew that they could call me at any time. We could do deals on a Sunday night. I'd be available to go to the office. It didn't matter. But it wasn't until that night when my daughter rattled me, and truly rattled me. She just looked at me and said, and by the way, the part that's not in that video is that I ranted at her for a couple of minutes about what had happened. She crawled, almost hate admitting this part. It's tough. She crawled under the bed. She was so scared of me. I'm her dad. And that's where I finished, was, what the fuck are you doing telling someone I'm not home? And she just looked up at me and said, you never are. By the way, today, one of my best friends is that daughter, Rebecca. We have really connected.
The other thing you're known for is philanthropy. A lot of talk about a moral obligation, a lot of talk about this as part of a CSR approach, corporate social responsibility. You've referred to philanthropy as an opportunity. Where do we fit it in, both in our businesses and our personal lives?
That's a great challenge. When we started First Energy, within about 6 months, I had gone to all the partners and said, who are your top 10 charities? Because we got to start thinking about giving money out, because we were making money. And 8 partners, each gave me 10 names, 50 unique names, because everyone had the Children's Hospital, everyone had breast cancer, so there was only 50 names. And I'm looking at this going, there's nothing strategic about this process. So I went back and said, look, why don't I go looking to see what charities we could support that are connected to our clients? So if the spouse, a father, a sister, a brother, a cousin, was on the board of a charity, and they were a potential past, present, or future client of ours, well, all of a sudden we were interested, and we would help that charity. And with one of my staff dedicated to this, within a few months, we had over 200 unique charities that we wanted to support. And that was where the business went. And again, the numbers weren't large. I'm going to tell you right now, $250, $500. My partner said, do whatever you want, just keep going. And I refused to send a check out that didn't have a cover letter that was signed by 2 partners, because I wanted to raise the profile of me and another partner. And it was First Energy. And we made sure that we copied every single person involved with the charity who we cared about. And there were some that we cared about that were community leaders. I'll say, Nan McCaig and Mark Southern, and names that, have nothing to do with the oil and gas industry, but everything to do with community. So all of a sudden, oh, by the way, the charities often said, send the check only to the bookkeeper, the CFO. No, I'm not doing that. It's going straight to the chairman, who can then walk it down the hall or take it to the office and hand it in. But they've got to touch it. And what are they touching? They're touching a check and a letter. So it was about building brand. And that's how we started at First Energy, was using brand. One of the chapters in my book is called Philanthropy is Good Business. And that goes back to the comment you've already made, which is converting charity from an obligation. And people still talk about, if you've made money, you got to give it back. No, you don't. It's your money. Do whatever you want. But as an opportunity, it suddenly becomes exciting, interesting, and engaging. And that's really how First Energy went about it. And candidly, my partners and I got 4 or 5 people, 6 people, 5 people that work closely with me have come just to watch this conversation. So they're going to hold me accountable for every word I say, but I'm perfectly comfortable with the idea that giving is an opportunity, not an obligation. And that really gets you further in life. It engages family and friends and staff, and there's so much more to be done when it's an opportunity.
Last question. A number of us who get very critical of the business community and of capitalists who don't stand up for capitalism and the business community, if you know who you are, stop. Start standing up for what you represent. You're never afraid to do that. You doing okay in the social back and forth, and have you taken my advice? You know the advice I'm talking about.
I'm on stage with a lot of people. John, off. Sorry, and where we're going is John cornered me. We were having dinner in Calgary, and he said, Brett, you got to cut back on the F-bombs on Twitter. Because I was 60, 70% of the tweets were a little bit of F-bombing. So I cut it back to 20 or 25%.
Excellent, good job.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. I mean, I tell you, it was just, so. By the way, while I'm here, can I celebrate a couple people?
Absolutely.
If anyone's here from Brant, I bought a couple of vehicles from you. I got a 246 and a 318. You know what those are, 246D, in fact. Loris Disposal on the wall. Nancy Loris was one of our bridesmaids. So, I mean, there's stories going back in time.
Wow.
There's lots of overlap with so many of the people here. I see Marvin Romano. Can you wave? Were you in here? Where are you, Marvin? I see him up there. So Marvin, celebrated business leader. Unbelievable what he's done. His daughter happens to be a dragon, and I had the privilege of Marvin giving me a call to ask about the contract for his daughter, who had also she did her engineering degree a couple of years ahead of my daughter, who was also at Queen's doing an engineering degree. Anyway, what I want to celebrate about Marvin was during university, he and his wife were my ballroom dancing instructors. I'm just gonna, like, how, you know, I don't know how to say thank you any other place or way. And by the way, the ballroom dancing instructing, there was like 15 women and 3 guys. What a place to go, I'm telling you. You know, girls would all dance together and we'd be meeting. Anyway, so Romanos, well, there's so many names I can say thank you to that are in the room here. And it's hard to express my appreciation for, I mean, I didn't see the last 3 minutes of that video because it takes me a while to walk, so they brought me walking down. But I was touched by that video, and I'm going, did I say that? I mean, obviously it's video, so yes, but the work that was done, bringing this together, the fact that I'm number 10, the fact that there will be 11, 12, and I love the celebration of entrepreneurship that's occurring. And I've told a few friends that I'm going to this deal called Popcorn and Entrepreneurship, and they're kind of going, really? That's something meaningful? Yeah, I like popcorn and I like entrepreneurship, so here we are. Anyway, that's random.
It's been very meaningful, and on behalf of all of us who have the honor to know and love you, thanks for doing what you do, my friend.
Much appreciated.
Keep it up.
Love you, boy. Thank you.
I'm pretty honored to get to come on the stage two times in the same night to honor, you know, obviously Zane and the Sega story, but what an inspiring story, really inspiring, and I think, you know, Brett, you've opened up our eyes a lot to what goes on besides the business part and just what's important in life too. So,
thank you.
You know, congratulations to you, and let's get his star unveiled here.
Thank you. Yeah. Pull it over. How much you want for this scarf? Oh, sorry, that's still in the microphone.
Brett Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, the man with the balls, the brains, and the wallet.
Take care.